Mike Murray.
This is
SNL.
SNL
By the numbers.
Numbers.
Brolin took the plunge. Kojo carpools with Scarjo. The Shrimp Tower falls. There's the opening haiku for you. We are covering episode 962 of Saturday Night Live, hosted by Josh Brolin, musical guest Ariana Grande. I am your host, Mike Murray. Welcome to SNL By The Numbers, the home of SNL Stats. This program is a presentation of LateNighter.com. Welcome my first guest, first time on this show. You know her, you love her. The Loch Ness Monster might not be real, but Loch Ness Amanda definitely is. Welcome to the show, Amanda Mitchell.
Mike Murray, a legend. It's so good to finally do this. And feel like I've heard so much about you. It's very much like long time listener, first time caller kind of energy here. So
Sweet.
Exciting. Smooches is very like, thank you for having me. Like let's talk numbers.
Yeah, you were on my short list before the season for guests, so we made it happen.
I hope it was a very short list.
It was like 2 people. I don't know. No, it was more than that, but you were a name that went out first. And of course, first time guest Amanda and my first guest of all time, Jon Schneider, is back on By The Numbers. Welcome back, my friend.
What an honor, Mike. So great to be back with you. It's been a while since we've done this. We did a patron show together, but since the new year, I think I got sick when I was supposed to be on in the last run, but really since we did our mid-season By The Numbers show, I haven't been on with you on By The Numbers. So it's great to get into the origin days, go back to SNL Stats and talk some numbers with you.
SNL Stats. Never forget where you come from. Amanda from Boston as well.
Will. It's true. Can't forget. How's your mother?
She's doing well. How's yours?
She's good. She's doing her best.
Good. So we have to start before we dive into Brolin Grande. We had some breaking news today. So we have the host lineup for the next run. So we just wrapped up 3. We got 3 coming up. So March 30th, SNL will be back with first-time host Ramy Youssef. I hadn't heard of the guy, and then the next day I watched Poor Things, and he was in the movie. So now I've seen something he's done. So super excited for that. Travis Scott back the second time. He was musical guest with Awkwafina, season 44, episode 2. So he's coming back to 8H. John, thoughts about that episode?
Yeah, I'm excited. I think that, we learned earlier in the season, just because you don't know someone that well doesn't mean you can judge them or know what the SNL episode is going to look like. Bargatze was somebody who was probably a little bit more unknown in our community, and then he came out and crushed it. And I think that we got to give the same leeway to Ramy Youssef. So I think if you get excited for those unknown episodes, those surprises, this is the one for you. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Ramy will bring to the show.
Yeah, I know I do. I love the underdog SNL episode. We've talked about the Reggae Jean Page episode a lot. That was like maybe the last time I really didn't know who they were. Came in maybe the best episode of that season, or top 2, top 3. So I feel like when there's a new host, the writers can really do anything. They don't have to write certain characters or reference certain things in the media necessarily. So Amanda, do you have any experience or things to say about Ramy Youssef or Travis Scott? Amanda, you're on mute.
I lost the mute button. I fully just lost it. I was staring right at it and I lost it. Guys, first of all, I love Ramy Youssef. This feels like a very much an episode for the girls, for the dolls, like the very much like if you know, you know, like a great choice. Having a very peak time in his career. Remy, his TV show is very excellent. It's on Hulu. You guys should watch it. Great in Poor Things. He's very cute. I have nothing to ever say about Travis Scott.
All right. Moving on to the next episode, we have a 5-timer. Kristen Wiig will be inducted as the 25th 5-timer in SNL history. Couldn't think of a more perfect person to join the club. We had Emma Stone earlier this year. Adam Driver's on his way. We had Woody last year. We've had Jonah Hill in season 44. Like we're racking up 5-timers, and now we have Kristen Wiig. So John, me and you are high school cast. Just, it's come full circle now. So I can't wait to hear what you have to say about Kristen Wiig with musical guest Rhea.
I think is it Rhea?
Ray?
Well, yeah.
It's
I guess we'll
Ray.
find out.
It's Ray.
Ray.
Yeah, Amanda
Ray.
enlighten us on that in a second.
I will.
Yeah, Ray, I've heard in a bunch of EDM tracks, so I do know who she is. But yeah, Kristen Wiig, I mean, Queen Kristen coming home for the fifth time to take her throne. I'm really excited about this. I do think, as we spoke about during the cast member countdown, that she is a Mount Rushmore cast member and so important to the history of the show. For me, this is well deserved. I knew this was coming. I didn't know if it was going to be in season 49 or season 50, but I guess they are trying to set up the Five Timers Club for season 50. That, you know, maybe they're not going to be inducting people. Maybe they're just going to be celebrating what currently has gone on over the last 50 years. And I think that Kristen was a well-deserved member of that club and obviously had just an insane amount of great moments during her time at the show. I'm really looking forward to having her back.
Absolutely. And I just want to throw out there that I'm not a big warm and fuzzy SNL cameo kind of guy, but to have the 05 class reunite, including Sudeikis, so Sudeikis, Sandberg, Hader, and Wiig together again would give me all the warm, all the fuzzy, and would be like an SNL dream come true. So that'll be my hope. I won't get too excited, but that would be unreal. So Amanda, what do you have to say about Kristen Wiig?
Kristen Wiig is such like a core person to like when I think about SNL, I think about Kristen Wiig. Like she is like when you say Mount Rushmore of SNL, like that's perfect. She's she is everything a comedic actress I want them to be. She's got great physicality. She's just everything. God, I love her. And I have been like, where's she been? What's she been up to? And she's here reminding me, giving me, I will be seated. I will be there. I will be viewing. Very excited. Also, Ray, British singer, Black woman. She was snubbed at the Grammys, but then swept I forget what the British version of the Grammys is, but like swept the Brits. Thank you. Like it took up like 6 or 7 different awards that year. Like she is the up and comer of this year. It's a big get for her, and that's a great, I think, host and guest pairing. But in general, yes. Very, very excited. And also very excited to see Kristen go up against this group, because I think that's this cast is one of the tightest we've had in a very, very long time. And I think she will fit very solidly right in the places, the gaps that we need her to fit into. And I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, and
I can't wait to cover this one, Mike. I really don't know what the episode's going to look like, and I'm excited about it. I do want to make one more point before you move on to the third week of announcements, which is, so back in season 46, when we first started podcasting, we had this account called SNL Stats, and I was always posting these statistics, and eventually I got connected with some people who worked at the show. One of the first things I ever clarified with them, just because I was like, hey, if we're going to publish this information out to SNL fans, I want to make sure that it's accurate and that it matches what you guys have in-house at NBC. So one of my first questions was, do you count Tom Hanks, Brad Pitt, and Kristen Wiig as at-home hosts? And the answer to that question was yes for Tom Hanks and Kristen Wiig, no for Brad Pitt. So those were official by NBC. So that is why it had something to do with how they were paid for the episode and like they were booked as a host for the episode. Also, with like how it was recorded at Broadway Video and on all the documents and all that stuff. So there is like, it's not just like a fan thing, like
it's not like a weird, just like in-house, like they just it's actually
so she was actually like booked as the host for that episode. Cool. So that is why she is a 5-timer, even though one of those times has an asterisk, I guess. And
at the SNL at home, Kristen did a sketch. So Tom Hanks did an intro as well as the quote unquote monologue, but with Brad Pitt's case, he just did the Live from New York, exactly. So there is a little bit of precedent there, at least, that they did contribute to the show. It's been 4
years. I don't remember that. It's been 4 years. I have no recollection of any of that. Like I just I remember watching it. I can't remember. Wow.
It was a weird time
March
for all of us.
2020. We were really broken.
Yep.
Yeah, this time 4 years ago was a weird time.
Yes, it was. It was today 4 years ago that the world shut down, that Tom Hanks got COVID. March 13th,
Daniel Craig introduced The Weeknd, and then that was all she wrote.
He said that's the weekend.
So yeah, forever. Kristen, she hosted 2013, 2016, then twice in 2020, and now again for a 5th time, 2024. And third, but definitely not least, one of my favorite SNL hosts of all time, Was hoping to see this episode maybe a little sooner, John, but we got Ryan Gosling back for his third time. Contributed to some of my favorite sketches. The Vanessa Bayer Santa Claus sketch is, I think, top 10 for me. And he'll be back with Chris Stapleton. So, Amanda, any thoughts on Ryan Gosling there?
You mean Ryan, our last great movie star Gosling?
Yeah.
He is perfect. He is. I mean, I knew it was coming. I'm actually shocked that it didn't happen last year. I thought it was good. I thought he was going to be the season 48 finale, but I guess not. But I think that this is, it's a great timing for him, his career. He's got things coming out. He's got things to promote. He's on a high trajectory. And yeah, and I agree that Vanessa Bayer Santa Claus sketch is also one of my top 5 of all time. And I cannot wait to see him break. I can't wait. I want to place bets now to see who's gonna do it. Who's gonna be the one who makes him break? That's what I'm wondering. Keep your eyes out.
John, you have a favorite Ryan Gosling moment? I mean, this Papyrus for pre-tape as well. It comes to mind.
How can it not be, right? How can it not be Papyrus? So for me, that is for sure. I mean, I made a list on Monday night. I started doing this top 5 list that I'm going to try and do in most roundtables. I did the top 5 SNL 3-time hosts. I think if I was doing 2-time hosts, you have to consider Ryan Gosling for that top 5 list. He's just been fantastic both times he's been there. Last year when Ana de Armas hosted in that same week, right? Year after year, it was Ana de Armas and now Ryan Gosling in that same week of the year. Everyone thought Ryan Gosling was going to show up at least for that and make some sort of cameo because they were in Ghosted together. And now we do get him this year. And I'm very excited about that. I think he's going to bring it. I'm excited for just him to be open-minded. And, we need hosts that are willing to basically do anything. If Brolin was any indication, we need somebody who's just willing to give into the process. And I think that's what you get when you book Ryan Gosling. I am a huge Chris Stapleton fan. To me, he has one of the greatest voices on earth. I love him. And I'm so excited for this pairing. So I can't wait to hear Chris Stapleton on the show as well.
And I'll just add a final thought. I love when people don't get too big for the show. So we see up and comers that are really hot right now, like a Lordy, Sweeney, Io, those recent hosts. And we have the legendary hosts that come back that have been on the show for, decades and decades, like a Tom Hanks. So I'm glad with Ryan Gosling, somebody whose star has completely taken off before SNL, during, and still growing to this day, is not too big to come hang out with his pals at NBC. So I cannot wait for those 3 episodes. Just SNL has done a really good job in the casting and booking department. So cannot wait. But let's dive in to Josh Brolin. So somebody that, John, I listened to Hot Takes and Roundtable. Great coverage on him coming back and just kind of a unique situation. We've had a lot of young hosts. So let's look at the screen time for this episode.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited to get into all the stats. That's what I'm thinking about all week, Mike, was to see how do people do this week.
Yeah, you want to let the people know?
Let's do it. All right, let me run through the screen time for season 49, episode 14. Josh Brolin in 10 sketches and a whole of 22 minutes and 47 seconds. For the first time in a while, I feel like we have the host and musical guest back to back, but here comes Ariana Grande, number 2, with 5 sketches, 12 minutes and 27 seconds. Obviously, she was all over the show as well. Sarah Sherman is our leading cast member, 5 sketches, 7 minutes, 57 seconds, followed by Bowen Yang, 4 sketches, 7 minutes, 23 seconds. Then we got Heidi Gardner, 6 sketches, 7 minutes, 8 seconds. Ego Wodum, 5 sketches, 6:53. Andrew Dismukes, 4 sketches, 6 minutes, 40 seconds. Mikey Day, 5 sketches, 5:59. Punky Johnson, 3 sketches, 4:45. Scarlett Johansson with what everybody's talking about this week, Katie Britt, 4 minutes and 13 seconds. Marcelo Hernandez, 4 minutes on the dot and 4 sketches. Colin Jost on Weekend Update, 3:43. J.A.J., 2 sketches, 3:21. Kenan Thompson, 7 sketches, but only 2 minutes, 56 seconds. So just some short time for Kenan whenever he popped up. Devin Walker, 2 sketches, 2:52. Michael Longfellow, also 2 sketches, 2:46. Michael Che on Update was at 2:38 this week. Chloe Fineman, 2 sketches, just 2 minutes, 4 seconds. Chloe Trost, 2 sketches, just 1 minute and 7 seconds. Molly Carney, last for the cast this week at 54 seconds and 2 sketches. Then we have Ariana Grande's mom, Joan Grande, 5 seconds. And then Steve Higgins, a couple voiceovers at 3 seconds.
Thank you, John. It's like the old days. Love it.
I'm back at it.
Yep. So I have to start with my headline before I go to my guest. So this is the first time in Sarah Sherman's career that she has been the cast leader. So every week I start to do the analysis, either Sunday night, Monday night. Last night, started a little late. It was maybe the longest episode it's ever taken me to do this because there was so much going on, a lot of packed sketches. But I will put out on Twitter that, who do you think got the most screen time in the cast? And I got a lot of responses. No one guessed Sarah, but she was all over the episode. She's been in the cast for 53 episodes, only missed a few of those. But this is the first time she has led the cast in screen time. It is her second most in her career. First was the Bargatze episode earlier this year. Also a great night for Dismukes. It was his 8th highest career screen time. So Amanda, who would you like to talk about? Who did you enjoy seeing the most on Saturday?
I mean, I got okay. Okay. I had to think about it. Skip me. Go to John. Come back. I need a second. This is so shocking to me. This is a lot of information. I'm like, this is not what I expected to see. That's why.
Well, no problem. Just think about a couple of people that on this list that really stand out to you as big surprises. So yeah, I mean, I find this fascinating every week. But I'll start with a couple of people and then maybe it'll trigger something for you, Amanda. Yeah. I mean, look, Kenan Thompson, here we go. So, the start of the season, his numbers were down, and I attributed this to all of the outside projects he was working on. Good Burger 2, he had a book coming out, all of that stuff. Since then, he's had a couple of really strong episodes, but let's be real. I'm not saying Kenan's lost it, but this is end of career stuff that we're looking at here in terms of the numbers. When you're talking about this much of a drop off, it reminds me of a lot of professional athletes that really just, have that late career peak and now are slowly heading down, and makes me think that, a lot of people felt like Kenan's last year would be 50. I think he's sort of just, hey, you need me in a sketch for a quick line. You need me for a quick joke. I'll be there. But I don't think he's anchoring anything unless it's maybe a vintage what up with that at some point. But besides that, I think we're running out of steam on the Kenan for the rest of his career, just at least the way that it's heading. So that's a big number for me to look at. I think
that's what befuddled me. Hearing 7 sketches and literally seeing that Ariana Grande was in 2 less sketches and had nearly, that's counting screen performance, but 4 times the amount. That's wild. Especially for somebody who literally, I did the math today, Kenan's first episode, the children who were conceived the evening of Kenan's first episode will be able to vote this November. So there's that. That is a wild run.
This is why you're here, Amanda.
Tired.
Thank you.
The man is tired. The man wants to go to bed. And I don't blame him. It's one of those, I think he wants to hold the title of being there for a long time, and he's happy to be let me just come in and do 1 or 2 things, then I'm out. He wants to make sure he's back in bed in New Jersey by 12:30 tops. He wants to be in bed.
I mean,
so
you hear that? I mean, if you were doing it the night that Kenan had his first SNL episode, then your kids are voting in this election. That's what you should do.
You're welcome. You feel old. I hope you feel ancient. And good luck paying tuition with the FAFSA disaster.
October 4th, 2003. So quick number crunch. Kenan Thompson has been on SNL for 44% of the show's run. So if he does go through 50 and adds, the rest of this year and about 20 or so more episodes, then it'll be even higher. So
that's an impressive run. Let the late man live, but also
unbreakable record.
It's fine to go home now, Kenan.
So my big other surprise on the other side, the pleasant surprise of this, I mean, obviously Sarah Sherman is to have her lead the cast is an incredible week, but I have to give it up to whatever happened that made Andrew Dismukes become a star of Saturday Night Live, because I've been vouching for this guy for years. I said his comedic sensibility just hits me in a way, and it seems like a lot of our listeners feel similarly, but the numbers never backed it up. And now he's getting significant screen time. He's been in the top 5 of screen time a couple times this season. He keeps producing sketches week after week, and it no longer feels like Dismukes is a host-dependent cast member. It truly feels like he can mix and match with anybody. And I love that they're giving him more runway. I don't know if it's that they're sort of hearing what we are saying or what the public is saying and just their love for Andrew. But I think that everyone at the top of this list has been given an opportunity to show what they could do on the show. Andrew's now finally getting that opportunity on a more consistent basis, and I think he's hitting with it. So for me, 6 minutes 40 seconds from him and only 4 sketches. That's the key here. This is not a Keenan number for the week. This is like a significant amount of screen time in, an average number of sketches. That's big for me. So it's something I'm excited about.
And to John's point, 4 episodes in a row now, he's been over 5 minutes. So 6:55 with Iowa Debris, 5:10 with Shane Gillis, 5:37 with Sydney Sweeney, and now 6:40. So he is heating up at the right time. It's good to go into that 50th being a star of the show. So Amanda, are you a member of Dismukes Nation?
Oh yeah. I love that little weirdo. Like I just want to go like this to his head. Like I don't know what, like he's just so elastic to me, for lack of a better term. He's everything. And yes, it's so nice to see more of him because he is that guy who, like, when he shows up, I'm always like, it's nice to be like, oh, good for you. It sounds so condescending, but it's like, yay, Andrew's here. Like things are going to get a little bit better because Andrew showed up. He's that guy who I'm always, and this is not a knock on Mikey Day, but that was what Mikey Day was in like the early stage of, early years, was like, oh, Mikey Day's here. Like things are going to get a little bit different, a little bit weirder. And so I'm very happy to see his numbers go up and to see him just thriving here. I hope he's here for a while.
And I'll say like a huge difference between like Mikey's trajectory and Andrew's is, I know Andrew and Mikey were both writers prior to them being cast members, but I think Mikey sort of just had like an easy fit in with the exit of Taran Killam and then him sort of filling that role pretty quickly on the show. Yeah. Whereas Andrew Dismukes was, he comes in the COVID year. It's a little bit like, iffy to find his comedic sensibility. And I think that, he was writing his own stuff and maybe was sort of writing in a silo. But now it seems that he's connecting a lot with August White, one of the writers on the show, and they are writing a lot together. And I think that he's found a partner that really helps him on the show as well. So between that and his connection with James Austin Johnson, I think he's set up really well for whatever his future is at the show. Yeah.
I think it's nice to have a good core cast, and he's a good core cast for the show to have,
Absolutely.
Couple more quick Dismukes numbers. He is such a titan of the live sketch, something that SNL will never go away from, but we're seeing amazing pre-tapes week after week. 66% of the screen time is in live sketches outside of, cold open, weekend update, monologue. So that's 39 minutes, 4 seconds of just pure sketch. He's the 6th highest in the cast for screen time per appearance. So John mentioning earlier that Keenan had 7 appearances for 256. We saw him as, Chris from Get Out during the cold open, and we heard him for 2 seconds as the Arby's voice during update when we had no other actual guests. So Dismukes with that minute 15 per appearance. So when you see him in a live sketch, typically he's in it for a while. He's not doing the Michael Longfellow one quick joke kind of thing that we saw last year with Longfellow. So he's really been the A player for a lot of that. So Amanda, any final thought before we move on?
Well, speaking of Longfellow, it's wild that like how much of his screen time was in the cold open, did he speak in that cold open? No,
he did not. Nor did Punky.
It's like, okay, it counts. He's on screen. But did he speak words? It counts. But
he had a minute 42 in the cold open as Speaker of the House.
So he had a minute
4 in the wine and cheese night sketch.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah, it's been rough sledding for Michael Longfellow.
Michael Longfellow.
Yeah, I think this is maybe a sophomore slump we're going through right now. I have to say, like, I've seen it before. I saw it with James Austin Johnson a little bit last year. Like, this does happen on the show. I think he's likable enough and he brings enough to the show that I can't imagine them not bringing him back. Yeah. But I just hope that, we're down to the final 6 episodes after this. He has to be given some sort of showcase between now and the end of the season. Otherwise, over the summer when we're starting to think about the future of the show, he'll become a little bit more forgettable. And I don't want that for him because I think he's that talented.
Especially with NBC pushing Marcelo Hernandez so hard. Like I feel like I mean him doing Jimmy Fallon this past week. I feel like just they love him at 30 Rock. Like so, I'm not worried for Mr. Longfellow, but I am like, will
concerned.
it be a so Longfellow?
I think like, yeah, and that's a great point, Amanda, because we, you know, the statistics right here, like there's always like when Mike and I first started doing SNL stat stuff, like we always talked about like what's the end goal of all this stuff besides the fact that we're looking back at a 50-year show and we're trying to determine, you know, where value is in a show. It's also like how these people do well at the show so they have careers afterwards. And I think Marcelo's put himself in a place just being such a dynamic personality and being so like moldable. Like he can have some good characters. He's also has like a diverse background. I think
he's baby girl.
Right. And because of that and his just natural star quality, I think he's just set up for years to come on the show. And he's obviously going to go off and become a huge star. Whereas there's a lot of other question marks from his class. Yeah,
Marcelo's always giving me a young Sandberg energy. So like it's kind of that same thing. Yeah, there's that. Very exciting though.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting class, the class of 48. So we'll see what becomes of them. But there's something, we got more groundbreaking stats to come, but there's something that we've noticed in the show for a bit. And, you know, our friend at That Week in SNL, Andrew Dick, pointed it out on the Hot Take Show with John. A certain concept that SNL has been exploring more and more, and we saw it a few years ago. We've been seeing it more, which, John, you're a fan of this?
I am a huge fan of this. There's nothing that makes me laugh more than this, or maybe not, but I'm a big fan of this. I think this is the type of humor I look for from the show. So let's do it.
That brings us to our next segment. What the cuck? This is a analysis of how many sketches since season 44 SNL has done with the theme of cucking. If you're not familiar with that, John, can you tell the folks at home what cucking is?
Oh, going to me. Well, it is.
Well, you gotta go to the big fan.
It is the act of somebody in a sexual situation, intentionally submitting themselves to the process. So, is that good, Amanda? Did I do that well?
I would describe it as one sexual partner finding gratification from the humiliation of viewing their desired sexual partner, their sexual partner in flagrante with another partner.
Yeah, exactly. So sort of just opening things up to new possibilities and feeling okay with whatever happens.
Yes, being like loving just the concept of its expansion. Yes.
So I went through every sketch of the past 6 seasons, and I went straight to, Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of what this act is, and it was really just came down to a partner cheating, first of all. So I'm glad that John and Amanda really went into the kink of it more, but as far as the parameters of this list,
you got to go to Urban Dictionary, Mike. That's where the real
I know. I'm trying to keep it, above deck here. But so the first thing I want to say is season 49, episode 14, 13, 12, 11, and 10 have a sketch that contains some form of cuck element to them. So I will remind you of them. And then, John, if you want to point out, Amanda, any of the other ones in the list for the past few years, please feel free. But that would be the bank robbery sketch, which might be the most blatant display of this concept here with Josh Brolin and Heidi Gardner at the Chase Bank. The loud table sketch, again, it would not really Dismukes being in favor of it, but Glenn Powell coming in at the end, swooping up Sydney Sweeney and making Andrew Dismukes the cuck. Forrest Gump sketch. Forrest Gump ended up cucking Shane Gillis at the end there. The bad couples, James Austin Johnson was the husband of Iowa Debris, but she was cheating on him with Devin Walker earlier in that sketch. The home videos, Mikey Day was not the actual father of Dismukes, but Marcelo ended up being the father in the old Mari home videos. And earlier in the season, Dismukes was cucked yet again by Jason Momoa when he stole Chloe Fineman away. So, Amanda, you see any of these on this list, and just what's going on in the writers' room?
Okay. I have no words. Okay. If I were somebody SNL watching this thing happen, I would be like, guys, we have to have a group therapy session. They're onto us. Like, they are aware. Like, there has to be, like, okay, we haven't gotten to the point that I really want to talk about, which is the MD of it all. But like, okay, it has who in the SNL cast is unintentionally exposing us to their kink. Like, you know, those like TikTok videos
unintentionally exposing us is not the right term for this.
Sorry, not that. I'll take that word. Who is wanting to talk about it? Who just wants to talk about it? Like, do you want to talk about it? Like, do you have something going on you want to talk about? Like, I will talk to you. Like, it's what?
Okay.
I feel like I'm watching those TikTok videos where they intentionally make food poorly to keep you watching and make you mad. I feel like that's what I'm watching, reading this. Like, I'm like, wait, have I been witness to something this whole time? And I've just been missing it?
Yeah, look, I think we were pretty generous here with the word cuck. I think some of these are more cuckable than others.
I wouldn't count the bank robbery as cuckolding. I count that as an eyes wide shut situation.
Yeah, I think this is like a fun anything
older
goes
couple, like
yes,
like a pineapple on a yacht situation, you know.
Oh, I thought you said that it was a willing participant. I mean, it doesn't get more willing participant than Josh Brolin.
I think like maybe had we gone into the vault and seen and like Josh Brolin was comfortable with one of the bank robbers, you know, going after Heidi. I think that's more of a cuck situation. But look, I think we're being a little bit liberal here with the cuck of it all. I think,
but there is some two partners in which there is a person of desire, and one part or both part of the partnership are not making it. Or are not ashamed in making it clear of their desires of that person. Is that the general concept of cuckolding that we're using here?
Yeah, it's sort of like, and here's an example, right, that's not on this list, but like, you know, Jake Nordwin writing a sketch where Chloe Fineman's gonna hook up with Jacob Elordi. I think Jake Nordwin was the cuck in that situation, is he not? Love you, Jake, but just
I wasn't trying to name names in the segment, but
but that's a good example, right, of a semi-cuck situation. But yeah, I think we're being a little bit generous here, but clearly there are some themes, and the truth is, like, you know, if we're gonna get serious as much as we can in this situation, I think where Andrew and I had a little bit of a disagreement on is like, he's like, hey, this happens a lot on SNL, and if he's watching the segment right now, he's gonna be like, see. But for me, like, look, there's not a lot of things that I find funnier than like just weird sexual situations. Like, this is not something that I like take practice in my personal life. I think I'm like too vanilla, but like, you know, for the show, and I think it's funny to expose this, because the truth is like a younger generation now, not to age myself, but younger generation now seems to be like much more like, let's just see what happens, you know. So that's what's gonna happen in comedy, right? Like,
it's more like the hilarious what if of a sexual situation. It's like, what if we did this? But like, what if we did? Which is always funny. It is always like, well, what if we did that? Like, but also I just think sex is hilarious in general. Like, it's
me too. Yeah. So
thing. Like, wow, two people mashing their bodies together. Hilarious.
It's weird.
So weird. It's so weird, and we do it. But yeah, like, but this is fascinating to me. I love this.
All right. Well, just for clarity for the listeners, can we pick one sketch on here that's like a definition of it? Because, you know, we're talking about it.
I think I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus, the Mikey Day sketch, is like your definitive SNL cuck sketch. And then every other one on this list is like, has elements of cuckage, but it's not, they're not all there.
All right,
and I think the reason why that it does is
of this episode now, how many times it's been said.
And I think also the reason why it fits so well is because it is like that. When you listen to that song, you're like, what's going on here? So it's kind of like, I'm glad it's like a living embodiment of the way we all feel listening to that song, which I think is why that sketch works so well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you have it, SNL. If you're listening, I don't know what the verdict is to keep doing it or do less of it, but we're aware of it.
Yeah, but I'm here to talk if you need to get something out, people. I'm worried about
So-
y'all over there.
We were talking about, Andrew Dismukes versus Keenan in the screen time. So I thought it would be important, and I know, John, you wanted to look at who's been getting those A roles in the sketch. So I just compiled, this is a big part of the power ranking, is to distinguish the roles of an A, a B, a C, or a D. And so I'll feel free to, John, I can read them out. I know it's a big chart to look at, but I did organize them by how many of them they've had this season and what percentage of their appearances have been classified as an A role. So I'll just explain what that is. And it's really just, when you see it. I feel like the A roles in a sketch are the easiest to identify. Like if James Austin Johnson is Trump for the cold open and he's leading the entire sketch, like that's a clear example of it. Where a lot of sketches are just, like Lisa from Temecula, where you have a lot of people at a table and Lisa is the star of the sketch. So Ego would get the A role for that, or a Weekend Update anchor or correspondent. So the B roles are really just a general sketch role. And then a C would be like a non-speaking role, like Punky and Longfellow in the background on screen, physically there, but not talking. And then a D role would be a kind of non-appearance, which is like almost always a voiceover. So, John, now that we have it, I'll tell you the top 5, which are Bo and Yang with 23, Heidi and Ego with 18, Mikey Day with 17, and Andrew Dismukes with 15 A roles this season.
Yeah, this is fascinating to me, Mike, because the reason I asked you to prepare this is because I had a theory going back to our last feedback show where I said that I feel season 49 is the most ensemble that we've ever had an SNL cast. I don't think that there is one true star here. I think we're always going to look back on the season and not say that anybody was in particularly running the show. And I think that is, perhaps to the detriment of the season a little bit. And so, last year, the rise of Mikey, Keenan continuing to crush it, I think maybe masked some of the issues where they were trying to find their next star. So I had a theory, which is just simply that SNL is just pockets of cast members who write with, writers that they enjoy writing with. And it's sort of just, watching sketch after sketch where you're going to get a Bowen sketch, a Heidi sketch, a Mikey sketch, an Andrew sketch, and it's just going to be throughout the episode. And you're not going to have anyone just clearly dominate in the way that they would have, like a Kristen Wiig or a Will Ferrell, like that type of thing. So I asked you to put this together because I know that this is a stat that you're very comfortable with, which is defining who are the lead roles in each sketch. And I was very curious if we were going to have somebody that was going to rise to the top. And, Bo and Yang at 23 here is definitely the one that's being pushed the most as the star of the show. But it is fairly even between Bowen, Heidi, Ego, Mikey, even Andrew at 15. Like it's all pretty bunched together. So it's sort of confirms my theory that there are multiple people being pushed as the star of the show right now and nobody that's the clear definitive star.
And on the inverse, Chloe Fineman under 10. So we see someone like Chloe rack up a lot of screen time, but not get to be the star of the sketch a lot. I'll look at the bottom as well. J.A.J. So a lot of his A appearances were as Trump. And so, he's no longer Biden, but when you see him as Trump, except in like the Shane Gillis sneaker sketch, usually he is that A role. Chloe Trost at 7 as well. Devin at 6, Punky at 4, Michael Longfellow at 4, and Molly at 2. So Amanda, what do you think about these stats and just how important it is to be the anchor of a sketch, kind of being the quarterback, dictating the tempo of it rather than just being the person who can be funny as much as possible in as little time? Is there something to be said about somebody who is the star of a sketch, regardless if it's a straight role or like a goofy role?
I mean, I think that's a quantity versus quality kind of thing, because I think is it just as important to be in a part of a sketch that's memorable or a sketch where you are the lead? Because I think I think I would rather be on the sketch where it's memorable, but rather than the sketch where it's like, oh yeah, I'm the top. But even just looking at these numbers, like the percentage is where it's what's really kind of jarring. Like taking out Jost and Che because they don't really count. That's absurd. But like the jump between Keenan and hold on, I was looking at it before, between Keenan and like Chloe, That's a big jump. But even the jump, but like 44, like I think Bowen's up here that was like 46% of lead roles. What's that?
So
What?
that would be
How does that work?
46% of Bowen's roles.
Of Bowen's roles are
So not of
leads.
like the available
I don't know how to
roles.
count. I went to school for playwriting. I'm not good at statistics. But anyway, anyway, I think that, I mean, this actually feeds to the point that you're talking about with Longfellow and Molly Kearney. Actually, looking back over down here, it's kind of like, ooh, like you're not getting leads in sketches and you're not getting sketches. So let's talk about that. But I think this whole, I mean, I agree with all of the assessment here, that all the people who are on the top are who I think of as the people anchoring season 49, people who are core cast: Bowen, Heidi, Ego, Mikey, Andrew. And then I'm just a little shocked at Keenan's placement even here. It's like of 22% of his there's still the top, even though we barely see him. Oh, very strange,
it just
very
means like
peculiar.
only 1/5 of the time, a little bit more than 1/5 of the time on SNL, we're going to see him in a lead role or anchoring a sketch, which is, it's very surprising for Keenan at this stage. I mean, I guess, look, if you imagine anybody in their 21st season on the show, you never think that they're going to be dominating, but you know, for what Keenan's done over the last few years.
Yeah.
But look, I mean, Amanda, my ultimate stat that I've always wanted to create, this is the dream stat, if I could put this together somehow,
right,
was something I refer to as hit rate, which means that, you know, if Bowen Yang, let's use him as an example, did 23 sketches as an A role this year, what is his hit rate? Which would mean that like over 50% of the general population enjoyed that sketch. And it's so hard to do, right? Because, you know, things are subjective. How do you actually pull the people? Like, this is the stat that I could never pull off. But my dream would be like, who has the highest hit rate in the history of the show? I have to imagine it's like Will Ferrell, because like he just was leading in so many roles. And then like most of them were, like Farley could have a very high hit rate. That's a good example, where they're highly regarded. And like, that's one of those things where if you're going to measure who the best cast member is of all time, it has to be the person with the highest hit rate. So it means like anchor the most and was generally regarded as hitting as many times as they could. Which is not stat compiling in the way that we look at some of the greatest cast members of all time, who like Keenan, who's been on the show for so long and compiled so many stats. So for me, I just think this is
hard
one
to quantify that number.
Right. So this is one variable.
Yeah. It's very,
and that's what I'm curious. I'd be curious, and I would, maybe a very small sample size of something like this, Mike, would be to poll the patrons or maybe even some of our social media followers of being like, here are Bowen Yang's 23 A roles. Do you consider this a hit or a not hit or a miss, like that type of thing? And then actually measuring like how many of them hit or not. And then I think you know who the best cast member of the season was. So that to me is like a definitive stat.
Yeah, I mean, at least, I mean, polling people, you just need to have a big enough sample size to make it legitimate. And I'll fully subscribe to a stat like that.
HR is sitting at home being like, we have new ways to figure out how to hire people, how to get people jobs.
Well, that's the thing, it's like, because imagine like there are some seasons where cast members who have like very high A roles, but are widely regarded as not hitting very well. And I would think that those are people who were probably let go from the show at a certain point, right? Because they were pushed on the show, but didn't succeed. Whereas the ones who hit, but were also given the opportunity to do so, are the ones who had either long careers on the show or went off and made movies and just were really successful off the show. So this to me is one of the more fascinating looks at SNL stats.
And I can't help myself, John, but to invoke the name of Aristotle Atari, who had 15 minutes, 38 seconds of screen time in his one and only season and 2 A roles, and they're both memorable. I know in hindsight, there's so few of them that they're easy to remember, but I think that they hit with a lot of our audience, which is Angelo and the Laugh and Tosh on Update. So he had 2 chances, and I think that we would agree with a big sample size that they did hit. So where others get a lot of opportunities and maybe a lower hit rate, you know, who's to say unless we had that sample size.
I totally agree. I mean, look, I think that, you know, I would refer people back to our conversation with Aristotle that we had last year. because I think he talked about a lot of that. He said his intention was to come on and do the 8 roles. That's what he wanted. And maybe that was part of the reason why he didn't succeed as much, because he wasn't buying into the process in the way that some of these cast members are. Like that's the thing. And that's why some people maybe don't enjoy this era as much as previous eras, is because it seems that the best way to be successful nowadays is to not be the star of the show. It's to buy into the SNL, process of, writing your sketch, getting it out there, but not dominating on the show that's going to push any other cast members down. And we've had the absolute privilege of getting to know some of these cast members of the last few years. But I told them in person, I said, like, SNL is a naturally competitive environment. Like, at the end of the day, like, you're going to look back fondly of your time here, but you're going to go off to Hollywood and you're going to make money for your family and, set up your future generations because this is the career you chose and you want to be successful. Well, you have like one of the biggest platforms in the world to send you off to do that, and take advantage of this time right now where if you got to put yourself in a position to be out there, go ahead and do it. Make friends and have a great time. But if you have an opportunity to be the star of the show, you absolutely have to do that. Take it and run with it. And I hope that, at least as far as I'm concerned, I think Bowen Yang has done a great job the last few episodes of taking the baton and running with it. And that's why I'm actually excited to see him have the most A roles, because I think he's hitting more than he ever has on the show.
And I was on By the Numbers 2 episodes ago with Bill Kenny and Thomas Senna, as we always do. Look at the power rankings that give you all the information, not just screen time, not just appearances. And Thomas had the great point of, at least in his opinion, because I had Bill and him rate the episodes or rank them in the order that they preferred. And Thomas pointed out, like, I love Bowen, but I feel like when Bowen scores the highest, those are the episodes that I actually liked the least. So right here, we can see Bowen up top. So he's going to have higher numbers in most of the episodes. But the Elordi episode was one that we did not regard the highest in the community, and he had 3. The Momoa episode, I feel like, was also not the favorite of the community. He had 4. And Pete Davidson, I thought that episode was better than probably most, but he had 3 in that as well. So those are episodes that are like, this is basically a simplified look at the power ranking because it's only one slice of it. But to have A roles means that you're not only leading a sketch, but you're getting a lot of screen time as well, whether that be anywhere in the show, update, cold open, or whatever. So I think it's at least an interesting look. So Amanda, final thoughts.
This was just wild to look at.
You're blowing her away with all your stats, Mike.
It's frank. It's very impressive. I could never, my brain does not work like this, but it's just, I feel like I've come on this show for 4 years and I've yelled at John and I've been like, where is this person? What's going on? Why is everything not working the way I want it to work? And now looking at this, I'm like, oh, I'm right.
Yeah.
I'm right. And also that's that fact about Bowen Yang. Yeah, he's established himself as the pitch hitter. He's who you bring in when things are going wrong. Like that, and that's also kind of where you want to be on SNL, even though it sounds like a bad thing. You kind of want to be the person that they bring in. Yeah, I made a sports reference, by the way. Thank you.
I love it.
But
yeah, look, to that point about Bowen, Amanda. Look, you mentioned Thomas and his thoughts a couple episodes ago. Thomas is a very intelligent SNL viewer who's very highly regarded for his opinion. He is one person in a sample size of perhaps many who look at Bowen Yang and judge how they feel about him and his episodes. And, again, if we were to properly poll people about all the A roles in Bowen's career and then say, did this hit for you or did this not? And then look at it and be like, was this over 50% for his career? I think we're talking about a successful SNL career. If it's under, and he's being overused and pushed in a way that he shouldn't be. So that's a
fascinating measurement that I would actually be very interested to see, just season by season, because
there also is a behind the scenes component to that stat, because it means people want to work with you. It means the show wants to put you forward. And the majority of writers are probably putting vehicles for you in the show, or it means you're versatile enough that you can cover a lot of ground.
Dismukes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I want to do a stat, just explore an area of SNL that we've never done the show before. So it's something that I wanted to track way back in the pre-SNL stats days before I even met John, because I thought it was an interesting kind of non-canonical part of SNL. which is the Thursday night promos. So we all agree it's not part of the show, but it's part of the show. It's part of the format. One of the reasons that I think SNL can bring people back year after year is the predictability of the format, from the live from New York to the weekend updates to the Thursday promo. So I just looked back at the last 50 Thursday promos. You know it well. It's when they have the host, the musical guest, and a cast member or two right at home base, staring right to camera, doing a couple little, we know in SNL they're sketches, not skits, but these are like actually what a skit is, just like doing one gag. Like that's kind of what they do. And they try a few of them to promote the show, to get people to watch on Saturday. So I want to bring up the numbers, but I want to go to John first and ask, what does it mean to be the person selected to be alongside the two stars that week?
Well, it's the first person you see in the week that, I know that now they're doing like Wednesday promos. So I guess, traditionally it was the first cast member you saw in the week work with the host. So that was always something that was extremely important. But oftentimes I believe it has to do with who's filming a pre-tape that day. And then they work in the schedule about who's available. So that is a logistical component. I also think they're a little bit more reticent to put a featured player in the promo because they want somebody that's more of a veteran status to work with the host at the beginning of the week and be around them and make them feel comfortable. So there's definitely a few factors I would say that go in here.
And Amanda, do you ever think about this? Is this something about like when you hear who the host is going to be, maybe like who you would pair them with? In
Never
a sketch?
In my life has this thought passed.
Well, not necessarily the Thursday promo, but
like who they would pair with, like in general, when like they get it, when you see like, this is the host who they're going to be paired with in terms of casting in that way.
Well, like, yeah, just casting for sketches in general.
Yeah.
So I because the impetus for pulling this together was trying to see, is there any correlation between success on Saturday and being in the Thursday night promo? Because there could be a thought that SNL is putting someone that maybe the host gets along with, has a previous relationship with outside the show, that they're already friendly together, or just maybe they have some similarities in their comedy, in their background, and anything like that. So there could be something to be said about that, which then in turn would mean that they might pair together in sketches. So that's kind of what I mean.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I think we pointed this out in the Bad Bunny episode. Like, that's why Marcella was all over that episode, was because like just the natural language, like, and it worked very well there for the two of them. So like, yeah, I think seeing the behind the scenes of how Emma Stone's relationship, even though she's married to an SNL writer, but how that like relationship and like her relationship with Julio Torres has really evolved, like, and how they worked behind the scenes and all the sketches they didn't get to do. Like, I'm always fascinated now to see like who's going to be their, I hate to say their butt buddy, but their butt buddy of the week.
We already stopped with the cucking segment, Amanda. But
so I will, provide some stat context here just to remind, people who you don't remember every Thursday promo. So I'm not going to read all the last 50, we don't always get them. And sometimes there's not a cast member in them. So I looked at the last 50 and just looked at what their screen time ended up being that week and what their power ranking was for that episode. So to really see how successful they were. So I'll read the last few and then see some of the highs and lows. So just this week, Josh Brolin had Chloe Fineman in his Thursday promo, and it was a really down week for Chloe. So there's an example of, she was in the Sandwich King sketch, but she ended up ranking 15th in a cast of 17, where the week before, Heidi Gardner had an amazing week in the Sydney Sweeney episode, and she was in that promo. So, John.
I was just say bad example, though, just because Chloe had a cut update piece this week. So had she done update as a correspondent, she would have been way higher. So I know we only look canonically at what appears on the live show, but just I think the intention was to have Chloe Fineman being something bigger this week. So I mean,
just going on recent, John. Just going on recent.
Yeah. Just maybe more of an exception to the rule. But I just want to say, like, I do think this is a really interesting stat. And then, as you mentioned, the previous relationship from the host to a cast member, I think is another huge factor here. Like you mentioned, Travis Kelce, Heidi Gardner that you're highlighting right here. I mean, obviously she helped book Travis for the show and she encouraged the bookers to get him on the show. I think of Billie Eilish with Kate McKinnon, Cecily Strong in her last episode at the show. They were like, oh, we have to get Cecily in the promo. Nobody knew that it was Cecily's last episode, but we have to get her in the promo just because. So I think there are some reasons, like strategically, to put people in these more than just who is available.
Right, of course. And one strange one too, John, you mentioned that you're not maybe put a featured player in there, is Marcelo has now done 2 of these Thursday promos, and one of which was with Nate Bargatze, and where he appeared for 4 seconds. So that's definitely an outlier right there. But and then something that has to be said is, of course, they're going for face and name recognition. So naturally, those will be the people that succeed in SNL more. So that has to be said. But I just figured if, listeners out there are curious about this correlation, does it exist? Does it not exist? It's just something to look at and then see where they ended up. So overall, mostly to the point I probably just said about the stars of the show being in them more frequently, but there is, at least in a numbers way, a correlation between the people in the promos do end up doing pretty well in the show. So I'm, looking back, but, we had Melissa with the Reggae Jean Page was the 50th Thursday promo. That was a solo cast member, and she did not appear in the show that week. So she ranked last.
What?
But
She didn't?
Yeah, and shocking, right? So,
and it looks like Ego and Paul Rudd too. The same thing. 46.
Well, that was the Omicron episode. So I mean,
oh, that makes sense.
Who knows
what
Ego would have done?
Guys, my brain is flat. Wow.
And then real quick, I'm just gonna sort by the frequency, and you can see that Bo and Yang in the last 50 of these, 7 of them. Cecily 6, Chloe 4, Chris Red 3. And Ego appears in them a lot, 6 for her, and then Heidi a ton. So they put Heidi in these a lot, 8 of them.
Who are we missing from the main cast that hasn't been in these promos very often? So you mentioned
JJ.
JJ as well.
Mikey
Day and JJ have not appeared in a Thursday promo solo in the past 50 of these.
Yeah, I know Mikey did it with somebody else at some point.
Yep, there was one that Mikey shared.
Yeah, and Punky hasn't done a Thursday promo, I don't think. So
and Dismukes.
Yeah, Dismukes, Punky, and JJ, all repertory players, still haven't done a Thursday promo yet, which is interesting.
So Sarah just got 2 recently, Dakota Johnson and Emma Stone, and had her first with Quinta Brunson last year in April of 23.
Very, very interesting here.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, I would have to think, given the way that they've been pushing Andrew, he's gonna be in a Thursday promo coming up. Like that would be my prediction.
Well, we have to predict Rami Youssef. So assuming there's a Thursday promo for his episode, Amanda, who's going to be standing next to him and Travis Scott?
A woman. Just looking at this, it's going to be a woman. Like all the I wish you could filter this by gender, but it's a woman.
Which woman?
Probably Heidi Gardner, but I don't know. Maybe Ego.
Yeah, Heidi and Ego.
It's going to be a woman.
Highest odds for sure.
It's going to be.
That's an interesting thing to think about. Is that do they typically put a woman in the cast with a male host, and a man in the cast with the female host? Like that's an interesting thing to think about. Yeah. It's probably about even, but it would be interesting.
I would even say it's like, who are they trying to feed with this promo? Mm. Because Keke Palmer, Bo and Yang tracks, but also Keke Palmer, Ego also tracks. Like who is the audience they're trying to cater to in this promo by getting it there is another thing you have to play into.
And I have to imagine that Keenan's going to do it with Kristen Wiig because, obviously their connection and being on the cast together. And then Ryan Gosling is the interesting one to think about who he might be in a promo with. So
I would guess baby girl of the moment, Marcelo Hernandez. Just because
that would make sense.
He's the doll.
Yeah. Well, great pick. John, for Keenan for the third one, for Kristen Wiig, the second episode coming up, because Keenan did star in that Thursday promo with Pete Davidson, with Will Forte. So when someone comes back home, Keenan's been in the cast so long that he's worked with them. So it makes sense for them to be together again. So let's now wrap up the show as we always do by looking at the current state of our SNL union in the power rankings. The chart is getting huge. We have 14 episodes, and that top of the list, that's been a nail biter because we had Mikey Day take a lead right away. His first few episodes, he was killing it. He got the role of Biden in the Bargatze episode in the cold open and was seemingly uncatchable for a while. Bowen Yang took the crown from him and has been wearing it for a few weeks. And then last week, Heidi Gardner became the first female cast member since Kate McKinnon's tenure to lead the power rankings. And she still does after she scored on 120.6 with Josh Brolin. She is now still queen of SNL at an average score of 96.8. She is number one, Bowen at number two, almost tied with Mikey Day at number three. So 0.4 difference between Bowen and Mikey. Then there's another close race, Colin Jost, Ego Odom, and Keenan. They're in like the mid high to high 70s. JAJ is in seventh place with a 67.9. Chloe Feynman in eighth with a 63. Sarah Sherman has now passed Dismukes. There was a three-way race between Sarah Sherman, Dismukes, and Marcello. Sarah had a great week, as I mentioned, first time in her career leading the cast in screen time. She's now in ninth place. Dismukes in 10th at a 61.5. Marcello in 11th, 58.3. Michael Che, short update this week. He had low screen time and only that one appearance. He's at a 56.6. Then the below 50 cast, we have Devin at a 46.5, Punky at a 40, Longfellow 36.2, Chloe Trost, the rookie, 34.7, and Molly had 20 as a 27 overall in 17th. Amanda, first time on the show, got to go to you first. What do you think about the ultimate SNL stat right here?
I love that for Heidi Gardner.
Me too. It makes the
I just
show more
love
interesting.
it for her. I just love it for her. And actually, I'm shocked that Ego isn't higher. I don't know why I did, but I feel like Ego and Colin, it's very close. It's less than 2 points difference, but it's like, I would think that because it feels like she's just everywhere on every single episode. But this week especially, I think was just such a Heidi Gardner episode of SNL in a way we haven't had in such a long time, which is like my favorite part of the episode. I love watching her do things. I think this, and last week obviously, but like this was very much, I'm just happy to see this happy for her and happy for Bowen, but that's not surprising, but really happy for Heidi.
Yeah, Heidi Gardner. I mean, John, I'm going to go to you for your take on her season, but looking at her stats, they're really incredible. So I say all the time that if you score above a 60, that's a decent episode of SNL. If you're below 30, it means if you blinked, you might have missed them. So Heidi's had over 100 for 5 of the last 6 shows. So Alordi, Dakota Johnson had a down episode with Io, and then Shane, Sydney, and Josh. Heidi killed it. So John, what can you say about the new reigning champ of SNL at the moment?
I'm super happy for her. I mean, it was years that she was sort of behind Kate, Cecily, and 80. And then we were always saying that like once they go, Heidi will have her opportunity to take over the show. Clearly, the stats are showing that. I mean, I've really enjoyed Heidi's performances on the show this year. I did like that bank robber sketch. I felt like it was really strong for her. She was both physical in the sketch and also the lines were well done. She has some good pieces on Update this year as well. So, including that fortune teller sketch. Like I think there was some moments here for Heidi that I'm really going to remember. My one thing for Heidi that I just feel is I still feel there's a little bit of a disconnect with the general public and her on the show. I don't think that the people know her as well as they should for somebody who's at the top of the power rankings here. Is that Heidi's fault? I'm not really sure. But then it's nothing to take away from her accomplishments on the show, but it's something, and I would say this to her directly, that I think that Heidi needs to play herself on the show. And like now more than ever, where it's as simple as a walk on with the host to say like the host would just be like, hey, Heidi, like, what do you think of the situation type of thing? And then Heidi could be direct to camera and people could see her real, personality and stuff like that, because she's so great in character. She's so great in her roles. But if you ever were to meet Heidi or like go back and watch my interview with Heidi, she is the nicest person, such a warm personality. And I just want that to come across on screen so that she has that, a connection with the audience in the way that, maybe Bowen is starting to establish on the show a lot more, because he seems to be a huge personality off the show and one that people know as, a characterization on the show better than they do Heidi. So it's just an interesting distinction that I thought was important to bring up here. But I am super happy for Heidi, and she's doing a fantastic job.
Such a good point, John, about her being herself. And it made me think of that Chloe pre-tape with Benedict Cumberbatch, I think. Was that it? When she was playing the female cast and was doing great impressions of her co-stars. And when she was Heidi, she had no impression, because maybe there isn't something that people identify her with other than being a fan of the Chiefs. So she was just wearing a Chiefs jersey and said, "Go Chiefs." And Heidi, was shown and looked unimpressed by her impression. So we have seen maybe that angle that Heidi's had by being friendly with Travis Kelce, getting him on the show. And she was just on Julian Edelman's podcast talking about the Chiefs and the Patriots. So things like that will definitely expand her notoriety. So someone like Kate McKinnon was all character, and she was very private, but she was such a huge star that maybe Heidi would have to be dominating the power rankings for like 4 or 5 years to get to that Kate status. But there is an avenue outside the show that she could get there.
I believe that she can, for sure. What I'll just say is, like, when you have in this last run in the Sydney episode, you had Bowen Yang, who did the Bowen's straight sketch. And then you had in this last episode, Bowen, who did the Moulin Rouge sketch with Ariana Grande. Those are 2 sketches right there where Bowen is basically like, looking at the camera, being a personality, like getting to know the person as well and what they like doing on the show. And I think that, the Kate McKinnon and Heidi Gardner comparison is very apt, but Kate was very much built in as like replacement Kristen Wiig, and then built her own path. And then, her being gay on the show and representing a lot of people who will look to get into this industry. I think like there was a lot of things going really well for Kate McKinnon. And I think that Heidi Gardner just needs that like one extra piece of oomph. Like, Amanda, you see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Like I've always said, Kate McKinnon was supposed to be gay Kristen Wiig.
Right.
Like, and so it's hard to go from gay Kristen Wiig to straight Kristen Wiig, because we already had Kristen Wiig. So it's like Heidi needs to find like that. Yeah. Like when you say she needs to show herself as her personality, I always have wondered if she's one of those women who is so in love with her job and her career that she might just not have anything else but like tunnel vision. And so like she might just not have. No, she doesn't. She's wonderful. I've met her. She's very nice. Like that's not true at all. I take that back. But like it's like but some people are just very intense about their jobs, especially when they're at their jobs, which is when they're dealing with both these people, especially your coworkers, literally. So it might be that sense. But I'm still happy to see her here, because when Heidi is at her best, she's extraordinary. Like, and I feel like in these past few weeks, especially even in a mediocre episode, she's still giving everything. Yeah, that's what I gotta say. I'm very happy. But I don't think we're done with Heidi Gardner. I don't think Heidi Gardner's done with us in terms of this show. Like, I think that we are very much going to get her. I think next year is going to be the year that she just runs with it.
100%. And I will say that I think like the biggest thing, besides the fact that she's obviously doing a great job on the show and should be applauded for the work that she's doing, the fact that she has this, connection to her hometown, obviously is a huge Chiefs fan. The Chiefs have been insanely successful. Travis Kelce hosted the show last year. She was in all these sketches with him. And then Travis Kelce's now dating Taylor Swift. And, Heidi is somewhat connected to that world, I think has elevated her status tremendously. So those are a lot of things that are working in her favor. And I'm not saying that she's not recognizable. I'm just saying that I just think she's
got a hotels.com campaign, right?
Yeah, she's in commercials. She's doing great. And I'm so proud of her. I just think we need like one little more thing on SNL, and then we're looking at
I want to make sure that she's going to become, after this, like her career is going to be, like in the same way, like I said, I'm thrilled Kristen Wiig is going to be excited. I want to be just as thrilled when Heidi Gardner comes back to the show in a decade. And I know I will be.
Yeah, look at Dana
And
Carvey, right? Like Dana had all these
Mhm.
amazing characters, was great and more comfortable in character on the show, and we never really got that whole like personality with Dana thing going, and that may have actually affected his film career after the show. So it's just one of those things you do think about.
Sherry O'Terry is another example of that, I believe.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mhm. So, yes.
Sometimes people are too good at SNL, and that's what happens.
I would agree. Yeah. It could be a good and a bad thing to be too good at this show. But it's
Well, Amanda, you might be too good at this show. So it was so good to have you on By the Numbers. Can't wait till you're back. Good talking math with you. Just such a blast.
Yes.
So please let everyone know what you got going on and where they can check you out.
I haven't used this much math since I was a restaurant like waitress. So I love this. Thank you so much. Guys, if you want to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, it's at Loch Ness Manda. You can also follow me on Substack, where I have a Substack called Letters from Theater Camp. You can read all my dumb thoughts and ideas and all of these concepts. And I just am finishing up my personal year-end awards, because after the Oscars come the Mandy Awards. So please go subscribe to my Substack and follow me on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok at Loch Ness Manda. Love you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see each other soon. So great catching up with you. Jon Schneider, what can the listeners, you just give them so much quality, so much content. Where can they find more of that stuff?
Oh, thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. Well, you can always find it on YouTube. Subscribe, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and you got to follow us at the SNL Network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm not done talking about SNL this week, and neither is Amanda, because right after this, we're going to go on Patreon and record the SNL sketch breakdown exclusively for the patrons. We're going to talk about that Moulin Rouge sketch a little bit more. So I'm excited to rewatch that with Amanda and give all of our thoughts about this week of Saturday Night Live. So that's exclusively for the patrons, patreon.com/the SNL Network. And another great perk of being a patron is you can sign up for our feedback shows and come on the show with us. And that will be the show that will be airing next Monday night. So make sure to sign up for that by Friday. We'll book you for the show and you come on for a time slot and join us on Monday night. And then, Mike, next Wednesday night, we're going to have a show in this time slot because I got to speak to Christine Ebersol last night. So we recorded that show with her. She is a season 7 SNL cast member and one that I was very excited to speak to. A lot of fun talking to her about her experience for that one season at the show. So I'm looking forward to that. So that will air next Wednesday night. And then we're hoping to have another SNL Stories right after that. So that will be what is to come before the Rami Youssef and Travis Scott episode. But Mike, so great to get to speak to you and Amanda tonight. What a fun show.
So much fun. Can't wait to be back in a few weeks. More numbers, more Mike Murray, maybe more Jon Schneider. We'll see if he's busy. But, well, come back, listen, be a patron, listen to the Christine Ebersol interview, and we will see you soon. Once again, we are a presentation of LateNighter.com. Thank you for listening. Love you guys. Love SNL. Love John. Love Amanda. We'll see you. Be safe, everybody. Till next time.